Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Still not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time. However, I actually have seen this show quite a bit before, 47 times to be exact. However, for the very first time, I am watching this show intentionally looking for messages that maybe I've just never thought about before. You know, those good sci-fi messages that sci-fi uniquely is positioned to do. Things that give us hope that things are going to be better in the future. Things that hold up a mirror to society and show us how awesome or stupidly ugly we are, or just teaching us how to be plain better human beings to one another.
We're going to do that today by watching the 10th episode of the third season of SG-1, Forever in a Day. Last week, I guessed what this one was going to be about, and I thought it might be a sequel or an inspired by brief candle, basically compressing someone's lifetime where they live forever in a day. And we'll find out if that happens. Before we get there, though, Brent, why don't you tell us a bit about this episode?
Jeff, I'm going to give you a bit of a teaser for this episode.
Oh, yikes. Okay.
This is an episode that you don't realize it right now in this moment. You will by the time it's done. You have been waiting for this episode for a long time.
Really?
I know you. I've known you for a very long time at this point. I've worked with you a lot. You have been waiting for this episode for a long time, and you don't even know why right now. You'll find out, though.
Oh, my gosh. Expectations right now just went...
No. That says nothing about the quality of the episode.
Fair enough.
Actually, watch the episode. But before we get there, this is, as you mentioned, the 10th episode, Season 3, Forever in a Day. Air date, October 8th, 1999. In case you're keeping track, last time was August 20th. So we've had a little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen, not bad. New season premieres. They get 9 episodes in a row. Bam, 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 bam. It's time for a little break. You know, they took a few weeks off. So October 8th. This episode is written by our show creator, one of our show creators, Jonathan Glassner. Directed by our resident Alfred Hitchcock, Peter DeLuise. So we'll be on the lookout for that cameo as we go into that. That's all I got for you on the front end of this, Jeff. There is quite a bit on the back end I want to share, but I can't do it until we watch the episode. Otherwise, I'm going to give the whole dang thing away. So,
man, I want to do this. I want to see this thing.
With that, it's time for us, as I mentioned just a second ago, we're going to go watch this episode. If you guys are joining us for the very first time, here's how this works. For the third time, I'm going to say, Jeff and I are about to go watch this episode right now. But we're not going to pause the recording and go watch the episode and then come back as some other people do. We're going to keep the recording going. If you're hanging out with us on YouTube, you're actually going to get our reactions. This is going to turn into a reaction video. You'll get our reactions to this episode live as they happen. If you want the full unedited version of this entire thing, the behind the scenes, no cuts, all the bloopers, all the other stuff, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/ByNerds. And you can check out how you can get that, along with a whole other list of really cool benefits and, you know, even how you can make a whole bunch of new friends.
If you're one of our awesome audio podcast listeners, thank you for leaving us that 5-star review. It means the world to us. But you're about to join us on the other side of this
Jeff,
episode.
can I stop you just for a second?
You may.
I want to make a plea that we have not made, at least to my knowledge. I don't think we have made this in SG-1 for the first time.
Okay.
Stargate SG-1, this is specifically to you podcast listeners out there. To you podcast folks out there, Stargate for the first time is very different. It's on a different feed. It's a different podcast than Babylon 5 for the first time. Those of you that were with us at Babylon 5, you guys were amazing at leaving us ratings and reviews. Blew us up. You guys are one of the main reasons that Babylon 5 became the success that it was, because you guys were telling people how much fun you were having watching the show. However, Stargate for the first time is a different show altogether, which means those reviews don't carry over to this show. So here's what we'd love to ask you guys specifically. Even if you've already left us a rating and review of Babylon 5 for the first time, please go over to Stargate for the first time, the feed you're listening to this episode in, and leave us a brand new rating and review for this show right here, Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Back to you, Jeff.
After you've gone and left us that review, if you haven't already, but go do that really quick. Then we're going to meet you on the other side of the episode. I'm going to share my first time reactions. Brent's going to share the sci-fi messages he pulled out of it. Brent, let's do this forever in a day.
7 locked.
All right, Jeff. So we have just watched Forever in a Day, or, Forever in a Moment, whatever, for the very first time. Jeff, I have to tell you before you go into your deal, this is one of those episodes I tend to not enjoy a whole lot.
Really?
I loved watching this episode with you.
Yeah?
I loved watching this episode for doing this the way that we're doing this. I have never enjoyed this episode as much as I have during this watch through right here. However, this is not about what Brent thinks about this episode. This is about what you think about this episode. Jeff, lay it on us, pal.
This might honestly be my favorite episode of Stargate SG-1 to this point.
Shut up. No, it's not. Really? Wow.
There's a thing you say frequently, and it's so true, that if an episode can make me feel something, right? Not even feel good, but feel something, it's good. As this episode wrapped up, I got for reals goosebumps that I held up. If you're listening to the audio on this, and I put it up to my camera, this episode hit me in so many ways. This was an exciting episode. It was one of the things I love about Stargate is how it's episodic. And you say this, I'm repeating things you've said so many times, but they came to fruition here.
Oh, what? Brent knows what he's talking about?
Right?
I'm sorry, that's what I just heard you say.
Almost like you watched this before and know what you're doing. Who knew? Who knew? But no, for real, this is an episodic show that sometimes pulls things out from past episodes. And this is one of those moments where so many episodes converge. Children of the Gods, Secrets, Need, in a way, even. So many of these things came together, these seeds that were planted in what is now the arc, for the next little while. In our very first episode of this podcast, I said the season 1 finale is going to be Daniel finding and freeing Shaw-Ray. What an incredible bit of subversion in this episode, where one, it took them 2.5 seasons to
just drop this in the middle of season 3 randomly.
Here you go. And honestly, I have a note here. I'm a little upset this wasn't a 2-parter. I almost wish that they went into more detail and spent some more time on a few things. Also, it was fine. It's just that's just me being overindulgent. But it took 2.5 seasons to get to where I thought we were going to get in 1. And then they didn't save Shaw-Ray. They killed her. She dead. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. This whole time, I've been they're somehow going to find a way to get Aminette out of her, and Shaw-Ray's going to be back or whatever. And whoa, the guts that it took to kill her, and in such a huge way. I think what was cool about this, and just looking back, when I watch this again, I'm going to see more of these, but there were little hints I picked up on, mostly with Kasuf, with Good Father, that show that this wasn't real.
Yeah.
There were too many things happening where things just weren't right, or someone said or knew a thing, that I'm excited to watch this one again just for that reason. But look, we got the kid, right, that Apophis and Aminette came and had together. He's what's called a Harcesis.
Yeah, this is important. Let's make sure we talk about this. Make sure you're clear on what this is. Yeah, he's a Harcesis child. Yep.
So the Harcesis is when the two hosts come together and reproduce, basically two Talri or two Unas, or I don't know. I'm just going to guess the two, whatever it is.
Yep.
They come together and those bodies reproduce and mate. All of the genetic memory of those Goa'uld are hidden, are in the memory of that kid. So they know everything.
Of not just, so think about it. So Goa'uld have genetic memory, which means that they have all the memory of all the Goa'uld who come before it.
Yes.
Their mother, their grandmother, so on and so forth, all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
The Harcesis child, though, has the genetic memory of both lines.
Do you know, in science fiction, do you know what they call that? They call that the Kwisatz Haderach. This is the shortening of the way. This is where Stargate and Dune intersect perfectly. At the time we're recording this, there's just the two parts of the first Dune book that have been put out in the movies. There's rumors they're going to do the next one. Maybe by the time this comes out, they'll be working on Dune Messiah, which would be awesome. But what you see is the birth of the Kwisatz Haderach. We don't even know really. I think they said the term maybe in the movie. I don't even remember for sure.
Jeff's about to turn this into Dune for the first time, and we're not trying to go there.
Prepare for incoming Gold Channel communication.
Before we gate into the rest of this episode, did you know you're missing most of the content from this podcast? Stargate SG-1 for the first time has an active and exciting Patreon that you can join right now by clicking the link in the show notes. Not only will you get access to the full, unedited podcast and reaction videos, you'll also be able to join a growing, vibrant, maybe even an intergalactic community. Subscribers even get access to all of our content from Babylon 5 for the first time. Don't miss out on this content and the amazing people. Just click the link in the show notes. Tilk thinks you should do it right now.
Indeed.
But I think, but it's relevant for all those of you out there. I know there are a lot of you who have read all the Dune books. Like, there's such a thing here. So Alia, in the film, you see the baby, and like she's conversing with Jessica, and she's having some pretty, grown up thoughts. The gist with Alia is her genetic memory, and hers is just the female line, but her genetic memory burst open and was live while she was in utero. So she's in the womb, fully aware, and has thousands of years of memories to build off of. That sounds like the Harcesis. And I'll tell you what, between Alia, Muad'Dib, and Leto II, these three people who have a massive amount of genetic memory, they mess up the universe in a really big way. You could say they save it, but they make
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's why I tried to keep it really high level, So I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this piece.
So, but think about that for a second, though. Okay, here you have, so the child itself has the entire genetic memory of the Goa'uld, two lines of it going all the way back. They know all the secrets, all the knowledge of the Goa'uld who've come before it. They themselves do not have a Goa'uld.
Right?
They are not necessarily loyal to they know and understand that their parents are being used as parasitic hosts. How much hatred do you think a Harcesis child as it grows up would have for the Goa'uld? How much danger is that to the Goa'uld for that to be
exactly? Tilk talks about that, how like they are hunted voraciously. If it happens, it's forbidden, it's punishable by death, and when one of those kids is born, they're all hands on deck to go kill it. It makes me wonder, though, like, what if instead of that and I think it speaks to the danger, because what if they kept them and raised them and tried to recondition them? But that's probably not possible with just all of those memories, all the knowledge they have. They know more. Like, you're going to have little dude and you're going to have Aminette, and little dude knows more than Aminette.
Yeah.
An actual Goa'uld. Huge, man. And what I think is cool about it is that Daniel, through all of this, tenders his resignation. He's done. And his reason for being done makes sense. I joined the SGC to find my wife, and there she is in the morgue. And we're about to bury her in a absolutely beautiful ritual and ceremony on Abydos.
Yeah.
Done. My mission's accomplished. Didn't end the way I wanted it to, but my mission is accomplished. Through these scenes, the visions that he has, the visions he has in his vision, she... time and again, you gotta find the boy. You gotta find the boy. Kasuf comes in. You gotta find the boy. He's getting beat over the head with "you gotta find the boy." Why? He's the Harcesis. He is the Kwisatz Haderach. He's the shortening of the way. Go find him. Daniel had a Y, and his Y was completed. He has a new Y, and he's back. I just felt as a point to put out there that's the power of knowing your motivation and knowing your why. So he's back. He's all in. He's good. And I think part of that process for him and understanding his motivation is part of how he was able to move to forgiveness with Tilk. That and Sha'Rai telling him, forgive Tilk. He did the right thing.
You got to get there. Yeah, you got to get there to it for sure.
And it's hard to do. We're going to talk about this more, I'm sure, when we get into the Chevron conversation. But I mean, there were just two impossible situations that we watched in this episode. There's Daniel's spot where I even had to stop the video and try and wrap my mind around all the things going on for him. I mean, the physical manifestation of his wife with someone else inside just tried to kill him. in a really awful way. One of his good friends came in and killed her, saving his life. But I mean, just so much there. And then here's Tilk. I can watch my friend die, or I can kill his wife. There's no win out of this whole thing, but there is, because that's the power of forgiveness.
Yeah.
I just to kind of wrap my thoughts up, and I want to leave a lot of time for the Chevron conversation because I have stuff for that also. The construct, the idea, the science fiction idea for this episode is fan-freaking-tastic. Forever in a day. Dude, in the moment between almost dying and Shaw-Ray getting staff blasted, he experiences all of this, the entire forgiveness journey. He experiences the processing of his why. He's able to work through all these things so that in that moment, Tilk just made that impossible, that Sophie's choice, right? Where he's just like, what horrible thing do I do? He picked one. And in seconds after that, Daniel's able to look at him and say, you did the right thing. Oh, that is so powerful. So incredible. Before we get to your conversation, it's time to update our tracking board. We're tracking a number of things. I don't think we got any. We didn't get any for crying out louds, indeeds, no deaths.
I feel like we've probably missed a few indeeds at this point. Daniel did not die, so we cannot count this as a death for Daniel. We didn't get a new boyfriend for Sam. We didn't get any for crying out louds that I heard from Jack. But we did get something, and we are counting these. This isn't a part of our actual tracking sheet that we're doing, but we are counting these. This marks the fourth Goa'uld killed by SG-1.
Yes.
Or at least major Goa'uld. I feel like we've done maybe one or two smaller ones, but this is the fourth major one. There was Ra, which was from the movie that you haven't seen in 20 years. There was Hathor, if you remember her.
Unfortunately.
There was Seth, and now Aminette. Now, they were around for Apophis's death. But they weren't really responsible for his death in a direct way. So we're not going to count Apophis on to their credit, but we will count these other four to his credit. Aminette gone.
It's a pretty big deal.
You're picking these guys off, man.
Right? Yeah. Boom, boom, boom.
The other thing I want to do is, we instituted a while ago this kind of god-goddess check.
Yeah, the mythology piece. Yeah.
Well, this is a mythology check. There's no real god-goddess to go through. I want to go to the funeral scene. And you talk about how beautiful that ceremony was. They go through, you see the scales, has the little monkey guy on top, and Daniel places the feather on the scale, and he says, if your heart is heavier than the feather, then you still have sin and you can't go be with the gods.
He said the god.
He said the god multiple times, and I was like, I don't know if it's just one, but whatever. This is actually a piece of real ancient Egyptian mythology. I have never in my studies, and I have taught ancient Egyptian mythology before in a classroom. So I'm not saying that I am an ancient Egyptian expert.
You know more than the average bear.
Yeah, there you go. I've never heard of this actually being part of a funeral process.
Okay.
However, part of the mythology is that when a person dies, they would go to Osiris. Osiris is the god of the underworld. All right. And he was kind of in later mythology, whatever. He was the god of the underworld. You would go, and where you would have your heart weighed against a feather on a set of scales.
Okay.
And so this whole process is actually fairly true to the myth of what would happen to your soul when you got down, you had to travel over water and all this sort of stuff. But it would weigh. And if your heart was heavier than the feather, that would mean that it still had sin in the heart. You still had guilt. You still had whatever. And basically there was like a dog with an alligator head.
Okay.
Chilling nearby. And he would like snatch you and drag you off to hell.
Okay. Wow.
If you were there. Otherwise, Osiris would let you cross and go on to be in, ancient Egyptian heaven. So, that was a very real thing. I've just never seen it in part of a funeral thing, but I loved that they pulled that in because that was pretty solid.
It really was. And I think it's just really cool. I think another piece on the mythology thing we won't dive into now because it'll come up in a future episode, but the boy is apparently in Keb.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a place where Osiris hid from Seth.
Yes.
But we don't know where Keb is. Daniel's like, it's a myth.
It's a
myth. And then Sha're's like, I'm going to tell you, but before I do that, I'm going to kiss you because that's awesome. Also, now it's the end of your hallucination. So sorry.
As far as mythology of SG-1 goes, you got the two big pieces. Harcesis, bad for the Gould. We need to go find this kid.
Yeah, good for the Tauri.
And he's hanging out in Keb, but we have no idea where that is. And you said Daniel now has a new mission.
He's got purpose. All right, let's talk sci-fi messages and chevrons. What do you got?
Oh my gosh, Jeff. Oh gosh, Jeff. I want to take this moment. If you're watching the Patreon version of this video, I've already said this, but I would highly recommend if you have not been following our Babylon 5 journey or were not with us during that time, head over to the season 5, episode 2, titled Very Long Night of Londo Mollari. That episode really kind of wrapped up a running thread that led through basically the whole show.
So much of it.
And it culminated in that particular episode. So that would be a great episode. I'm going to reference it a little bit here. And forgive me if I just assume people have already heard it, but I'm going to reference that. It's a great episode to go get what I'm going to call the other half of this conversation that I want to have tonight.
That's fair.
All right. Here's the deal. Daniel could not move on. Daniel could not do what he needed to do. Daniel could not embrace his new why, as you so eloquently put it just a second ago, Jeff. While he was withholding forgiveness, he had something against Teal'c. Teal'c asked for forgiveness, and Daniel said no. You know, on Babylon 5, we looked a lot at the side of what it means when you have something that you have done wrong to be quick to ask for forgiveness. And I'm not just saying turn around and say, will you forgive me? To really feel it, to really repent, to really be sorry, but then to actually say the words, will you forgive me? But here in Stargate SG-1, in this episode, we actually get the discussion of the other side. What does it mean to issue forgiveness, to give forgiveness when somebody has done something to you or that hurts you or something of that nature? Daniel not only couldn't forgive, he wasn't willing to forgive. And I want to back that up. Daniel could forgive.
He could.
He just wasn't willing to forgive. And I think that's important to say. We're all capable of forgiving. To say that you can't is not a statement of ability. It's a statement of will.
It's a horribly debilitating statement of that's total victimhood.
And I just want to say this because I'm well aware that we're going to have listeners out there who have been hurt wrongfully. Probably the person who hurt them does nothing to deserve forgiveness. They probably, in some cases, that person doesn't even realize they've done anything wrong. That person refuses to seek forgiveness. That person is not sorry for anything that they have done. Regardless of all of that, I'm well aware people have been hurt and they're holding on to some of that forgiveness. I would also like to say this from the outset, and I want to make this perfectly clear. You are 1,000% within your rights to not forgive. Okay. I'm going to spend the next few minutes encouraging you to forgive, but you are well within your rights not to. And I want to make that perfectly clear, but I want to talk about a lot of what it does to you and where this episode really had the discussion here, Jeff. So often, particularly in the early seasons of SG-1, they would present an issue and then they would never discuss it.
Exactly.
That's not what happened here. They presented an issue and they discussed it for the whole dang episode. And we saw the journey. We saw the journey that Daniel got to go on. Okay. Daniel was not willing to forgive. He was holding on to blame, hurt, and anger that all clearly led to him being one thing, and that's bitter. Because kind of like in Star Wars, anger leads to hatred, hatred leads to
all the other stuff that is Sith.
Whatever, and then it leads to the dark side, right? There's a truth to that. There really is a truth to that. Hanging on to this stuff, to anger, to blame. He was looking to place blame. My wife's dead and it's Teal'c's fault. My wife's dead and it's my fault because I didn't save her or whatever he said. He's holding on to the hurt. It led him to making bad choices. It led him to run away because listen, Daniel was running away. Let's be really clear. He was running away from the SGC. He was running, and he wasn't just running from the SGC. He wasn't just running from his job. He was running away from Teal'c. I'm sorry, let's strike that back. He was running away from the hurt and the pain of the memories that would continually be dragged up if he had stayed and had to face Teal'c, the man who shot and killed his wife. But what I would venture to say is let's strike all of that. What he was actually running away from, Jeff, was the fact that the only way he could continue in the SGC, the only way he could continue to see Teal'c every day, the only way he could continue on SG-1 as a part of that team is to issue forgiveness to Teal'c. And I would submit to you that that is in fact what he was really running from. He was really running from having to issue forgiveness because he didn't want to forgive. He wanted to hold on to the anger, the hurt, and the bitterness. He didn't feel like he could let it go, even though it was a choice he was making. You know, just as much as I say, and again, go to that Very Long Night of Londo Mollari episode, just as much as I say we should be quick to turn from our ways and seek forgiveness, we need to be just as quick, Jeff, if not quicker, to freely and openly issue forgiveness.
Yeah.
Oh, but Brent, you don't understand what they've done to me. You're right, I probably don't. But I can tell you, for your own sake, for your own heart, you will never be free. You will never be able to live your life free by hanging on to whatever unforgiveness you're hanging on to. Back when we did Very Long Night of Londo Mollari, Jeff, I got a lot of pushback in the comments, and I never responded to these. I got a lot of pushback in the comments from people saying, well, no. I'll say I'm sorry. I'll say I ask forgiveness. I'm never going to say will you forgive me? And the reason they gave was because it puts pressure on the other person to forgive, and they might not be ready to forgive. And that just puts a burden on them. And I'm not going to put a burden on them, to which I unashamedly say, BS. Sorry. That is not going to fly here.
I agree.
I also say this, good. Because you know what's best for that person is to forgive. It is not good for anyone to hang on to that bitterness. But your own sake, your own heart, the heaviness of your heart is not light as a feather when you're hanging on to unforgiveness.
Ooh, yeah.
You cannot pass that scale test when you're hanging on to that hatred. I've often heard it said, and I find it so appropriate. I've said it here at By Nerds for a while, Jeff. I've heard you repeat it. I'm going to say it again. Hanging on to bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It is a poison to your soul, people, to your psyche, to your well-being, to your physical health, to your mental health. Asking for forgiveness, the other half of this, is only one half of the way to restoration, or to, let's use our favorite word here, redemption. Issuing forgiveness is the other half. Just like in the story where Daniel could not get on with what he needed to do, he couldn't do the thing that he was supposed to do, the thing that he was being commissioned by his wife to go do, the thing that he was destined to do, the thing that he alone was uniquely qualified. Who is more qualified to go seek this Harcesis child than Daniel Jackson?
For real.
He is uniquely qualified to do this job, and I dare say he really is the only person who could do it. He could not do that while holding on to bitterness. It took Sharae 4/5 of this episode, if not more, to get Daniel to forgive. That was the whole crux of this episode, because once he was able to forgive, she could give him new orders. She could sell him what's up, tell him where to go, and he was able to get on with the job. But he had to stay in the spot where he could forgive. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. I'm talking about something here that doesn't make sense. I hope that this is hard for people, because it is something that we all need to hear. But I also hope that this is freeing for people to hear. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to issue a sermon here, Jeff. I'm really not trying to do that. Like I say, you have the absolute right not to forgive. You can choose that. But I'm telling you, if you make that choice, you are cutting yourself off from being able to live your own best life, from being able to live your fullest life. You will never be at peace with yourself if you choose to hang on to bitterness and not forgive, which is your right. But not only are you going to be trapped in that muck and the mire, the rest of the world, those around you, your family, your friends, the people that you would impact are going to be missing your impact. The thing that you uniquely are qualified to do in their life, the thing that you are the only one who could actually make happen, that is then going to be taken away from other people. It's not your responsibility to give that to them. That's it. I'm just saying that is going to be a natural byproduct of that. Daniel could not have gone forward from this episode. He would have been out of the show if he could not have forgiven as a character.
Yeah.
I'll wrap this up by saying this. I want to plead with everyone out there listening to the sound of our voices. if there is something you're holding on to, do the work. It is not easy to forgive, but do the work to lead to forgiveness and issue that forgiveness. And here's the really cool thing. You don't need the other person to seek forgiveness in order for you to issue forgiveness. Those are two mutually exclusive, independent things. Jeff, I know you have some things to say, but I'm just going to go ahead and issue. This is a 7 chevron. Jeff, I'd even get this because this one doesn't even exist in the realm of humanity. This goes to the soul, to the person. This is an 8 chevron episode.
Heck yes. This takes us to Asgard. Takes us that far.
Oh gosh.
So I wanted to bring to this a lot. This is some super personal stuff. I've been doing a lot of forgiveness work myself. At the time of recording this a couple months ago, I had a person do a really, really awful, horrible, hurtful thing to me that was awful and bad. And to your point, Brent, about like when you can't forgive, the people around you are affected and don't get the best in you. You saw it firsthand many times. Like we would come here to record or we wouldn't because of it. And I'm like, hey, I have this like rah, that I got to get off my chest before we can go and do this thing. And thank you for being so willing to take all of that from me as we were moving forward with it. But what I've learned on my journey is that forgiveness actually doesn't have, like what you were saying, doesn't have to have anything to do with the other person. In my case, forgiveness, it's a me thing. In Daniel's case, it's a Daniel thing. It's not about telling Tilk that you forgive him. Hey, that's great. Tilk probably, I mean, you saw it in that moment, right? And he said, you did the right thing. He's like, okay, all right, cool, good. But that doesn't, it's you, right? Like in my case, the perpetrator against things, they're living a high life. They're doing great, whatever. You know, I'm the one over here waking up at 4:18 every morning with my mind spinning out of control. I'm the one blowing off commitments and things like that because I have this thing in me. So forgiveness is a you thing. Right. And I think when you accept that, it makes it a little bit easier because what forgiveness is not, forgiveness is not condoning what happened. It's not accepting what happened. And it's not saying that it's okay for it to happen in the future. I heard a great quote from someone in a relationship kind of context around forgiveness. They said that a great way to approach it is to say to the person, either to their face or in your own mind as you're working on it, I can see that what you were doing worked for you at the time, but it never, ever worked for me. It's not saying they were doing the best they could. It's saying that in that moment, it worked for them. Didn't work for you. So you're not accepting anything. It took me from the time of what happened to me to the time I decided to actually dedicate myself to forgiveness. It took 92 days. 92 days for me to get there. And that was a while ago. I'm still working on it. But I want to really quickly share what I've developed is a 4-step process to forgiveness. We go back to the long night of Londo Mollari. Go back to passing through Gethsemane on our Babylon 5 thing. We talk about the steps of an apology and things like that. I've come up with, and this is the first time I've shared these, but 4 steps to forgiving that I'm personally working through. And step 1 is expressing the hurt and being heard. Now, being heard doesn't mean that person has to hear you. You need to hear you. I can tell you what, when I was talking to that person who wasn't in front of me, it was just, I was just talking to the thought of them, the spirit of them. There's some stuff that came out that needed to come out, and it was uncontrollable, this vomit of emotion. And it felt pretty awesome after those things were said, and I heard them said. Step 2 is to release the control over how the other person is going to react or respond. You don't have any control. They're going to whatever they're going to do. So accept that. Step 3 is understanding that they will be held accountable and will have to take accountability. The thing about that, though, is you may not ever see that accountability. You may not know what that accountability is. It may not happen in the way, the time, or the place that you wish it would, but in some time and place, depending on your belief system, that accountability will be there. And step 4 is to let go. Once you have done that work, you can actually let go and forgive. And that's not saying it's okay. That's stopping drinking the poison is what that's doing. That's all it is. And I'll tell you, I'm not there all the way. I still have work to do, but just doing the work I have done, oh my God, it feels incredible. Incredible. And it feels empowering, to be really honest. Like I feel like I have agency again. I could not possibly agree more. This is an 8 Chevron episode. This was incredible.
If I may, Jeff, it has been incredible to be alongside you in this journey over, frankly, what's been a very long time. It's been a lot longer than 92 days.
Yes.
Although that work has been happening. And you know, what you say there is fantastic. It is an ongoing process, but what you have done, and if I'm wrong and I'm reading this wrong, please feel free to correct me. You made a choice to forgive. Now you're doing the work to fully realize that. But the thing is, you made the choice. That's the forgiveness, is you made the choice. Now you still have the work to do, and there's more work to do, but that's where it starts. It's not you do the work and now you make the choice. You make the choice. I'm going to forgive. Now we're going to work out what that actually looks like.
I couldn't do the work until I tried doing the work first, because I've been doing a lot of work for a long time on things, and I tried putting that cart in front of the horse. It didn't work. And even making the choice wasn't this like binary moment. It took me some time to even truly make the choice. But there's still gonna be the things that activate you. There's still gonna be times you get angry. There's still gonna be times that you don't feel great about a thing. Forgiveness is not gone, right? It's still there. But as you do that work, the work of forgiveness, when you do the work to make the choice, and you make the choice, then you do the work, those times and moments are fine. They're gonna happen. They're gonna happen, and you're gonna be okay.
And you know, a lot of times forgiveness is a choice you wake up and you have to make every day.
And sometimes multiple times a day.
But when you do that, you can move forward. You can, and Jeff, I will tell you, you have been better as of late.
Yeah.
And I know you're still not where you want to be or where you need to be, but frankly, who is?
That's the journey.
I'll give one more piece, and this is Brent's own testimony, if that's the right word. Here's the deal. I tend to be a person who is very quick to forgive. It is not immediate for me. Okay. Nobody makes me angrier than my wife and my kids. And there are times when things happen that my wife is a person who is super quick. She wants to resolve conflict like right now. And so if something happens, sometimes I send my kid to his room, because I need space for a moment. Not that I'm going to ground him, not that he's in trouble, not that X, Y, Z. I need space for a moment to calm down. You know what I mean? Like but I also am quick to get there. My kid has never done anything to me that is detrimental. Okay. There are people out there who have really solid detrimental things that have happened. You, for example, and I'm not going to put your business out there, but anyway, 8 chevrons. I feel like we've driven this into the ground. I would say this. I am not a certified counselor. I've had some counseling classes. I'm not a certified counselor, but I have made this offer before, and I will make this offer again. Sometimes people need a stranger to talk to. They need somebody who's not in their life, somebody who's not in their circle, somebody they're not going to run into at the grocery store. If I can be that for you, my email and my DMs are open at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias. Hit us up, shoot us an email over at our webpage, bynerds.com. I think is what we're at, Jeff. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Bynerds.com. You can click an email form, shoot us an email. I would, if I can serve you in that way, guys, I make that offer to everybody. I'm happy to, not as a counselor, but just to be a voice, to be an ear, to just be somebody you can talk to if you want. It's there. But I beg you all to forgive. All of that, Jeff. Very huge Christmas bow. I think I know where this next part is going.
Probably.
I really almost just feel silly in going through it, but it is the exercise of the moment. I rate, you rank. That's how this show works. Jeff, we are doing our definitive 100% completely accurate ranking of season 3 of Stargate SG-1. Our current ranking sits at number 1 is Fair Game. Jeff, where would you like to place this episode, Forever in a Day?
Yeah, Forever in a Day is our new number 1. If you didn't know that from the second we came out of the episode, then you haven't been paying attention.
I have to tell you, Jeff, no way, shape, or form would I have put that at number 1 coming into this episode today.
Wow, that's incredible. I
way.
think one of my favorite things about this project we're doing are the times you can share that, or you're like, I've seen this episode 800,047 times and whatever, but this lens, this experience, this whatever has completely changed it for me. I just love hearing that.
Well, Jeff, that is going to do it here for Forever in a Day. We're going to wrap that episode. It's time to start looking towards the next one. Man, I got to tell you, this is one of those, I almost feel sorry for the next episode.
Oh, no.
How the heck do you follow this up? You know, and for whatever people think, I mean, Jeff, as you said, if an episode can make you feel, I don't care. I don't care if it's the Mutadol fighting somebody. If it makes you feel, oh man. But we're gonna watch it and we're gonna see what it can do. It's an episode called Past and Present. I will give you a hint. This is a sequel episode.
Okay.
This is the only thing I'm going to tell you. This is we had an episode earlier in our run of SG1. I'm not going to tell you where. This is the sequel to that episode. That's the only thing I'm going to tell you.
What comes to mind, and you'll be able to tell what other TV I've been watching when I say this is in the title of it that brings me past and present.
Past and present, yeah.
Past and present. It conjures up for me second season episode Deep Space Nine past prologue.
That was first season episode, wasn't it? Wasn't that like the second episode, like right after Emissary?
Yes. Yeah. It was the third episode. Yeah, because there was Emissary Babel and then this one. Why did I think it was second season? I don't know. Either way, just watched it. And I think Catherine Powers wrote it.
Oh, yeah?
I think.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she wrote past prologue. Catherine Powers, our lady who brought us Emancipation and Brief Candle.
Thor's Hammer.
And Thor's Hammer.
I think this is going to be a sequel to Secrets. Secrets is the one where we kind of had was it Secrets? The underground, like the people tracking Jack through Washington, D.C. and kind of looking at like that whole anti.
That's where we met Jacob.
Yeah, for the first time. So I think it's going to be that, and we're going to start getting some look at some more like terrorist sort of a things. And I'll just follow the past prologue thing. There's going to be someone involved in that whole thing that comes to the SGC, not in terms of like, I'm going to get you, but in terms of like, I need to tell you what's going on. And like almost like in past prologue there, he came looking for asylum. They're not going to do that in this one. It's going to come looking for like, look, I want to defect almost. I want to come to your side and tell you all this stuff. Start telling you the stuff that's going on.
You're a good guesser, Jeff.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted a chance to talk about Deep Space Nine.
You know, it's not a bad thing to try to talk about. Hey, listen, that's going to do it for us here on this week of SG1 for the first time. We'll find out if Jeff is right or wrong next week. You could watch the episode before you come here, or you could go to YouTube and watch the episode along with us. Hey, listen, if you don't do that, don't worry. You can catch the audio podcast wherever you get your podcast. Please don't forget, however you consume this show, wherever it is, don't forget to subscribe, to click, hit a bell icon, hit like, leave us a rating and review. Those are super important in whatever situation. Comments, leave us comments. We love to respond to those. Please be sure to do that. And more importantly than anything else, share the show. Share the podcast, share the YouTube channel, share it with somebody that you know that loves Stargate SG-1, or somebody who, like my friend Jeff over there, needs to fall in love with this incredible series for the very first time. So until next time, folks, we're going to get out of here.
Brent.
We will see. Yes, Jeff.
I actually didn't come up with an ending for this one because I was so wrapped up in the episode. Brent, this was a great one. I really enjoyed it.
For crying out loud.